All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
What up, friends? It is a little after 2 o'clock in the east, a little after 11 o'clock in the west. It is so cool to be with you all. Oh, please be seated if you would. Yes, speaking of seated, in his producer chair, the great Albert, everyone.
Albert, thank you.
And we're excited to have him here. I don't know, Albert, if you have any major life events you'd like to relate. I'm here now, as we all are, to enjoy listening to those life events now. Would you have anything, sir?
Oh, yeah, I'll be going. I'm a little off, but I'm here Monday, Tuesday for Tony. Tony's swapping with me because I'm going to Vancouver.
Yeah, Vancouver. It's a fine place. Are you considering citizenship there in Canada if Donald Trump were to become president? Is that what's going on? Is this a fact-finding mission?
Yeah, it's an option for me.
Is it?
My story. Yeah, story.
Wow.
But, yeah.
Justin Coaster says nobody's healthier or hunkier than Mr. Mark Thompson. Wow. I know. Meantime, Kim is here too.
Kim, how are you?
Oh, I'm loving it today. David Cay Johnston joins us in hour 2, so Tuesday's always a great day. So he has a town hall yesterday, D. Elliott says, and decides he's done answering questions and just has them play music for an hour. Yeah, and you know what?
Did you see the clips of that? It's the most bizarre thing.
It's bizarre, but how clever that you libs just don't get it. That's what you do when you're just unhappy with the way things are going. Hey,
play
roll
the
some
YMCA.
music. I wish I could do that. I mean, I wish you could. That would be
It's going to be hard to follow.
Yeah, the idea somehow that you can't just, hey, you're the guy who's the boss. You can do whatever you want. That was where? That was in Erie, Pennsylvania?
No, Kamala Harris was in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Trump was in somewhere else in Pennsylvania, I think.
I see.
Yeah.
Everybody's in Pennsylvania.
Nothing!
Because it's of course, it's the state. I mean, it's the juiciest electoral college state. The electoral college system, antiquated, ridiculous. Well, we've talked about the electoral college system here and how it's just inadequate when it comes to expressing the people's voice. But nonetheless, that is the system we have. And so Pennsylvania becomes a centerpiece in terms of electoral college votes. Justin Coaster says, I'd rather hear music than him talking.
Girl, you just woo.
Oh, wow.
The image is hideous.
Yes, it is. I actually have a lot of Trump audio today and Trump video. I don't know that we'll get to it. Sometimes I come here loaded with, truckloads of Trump video and stuff he's done. We have Kamala Harris also on the stump. Kamala Harris, as you know, is going to sit down at Fox News. And so we have that as well. And sometimes we get to all of it and sometimes we do not. Love Vancouver, says John Watson. Walk around Stanley Park, he says. Are you familiar with Stanley Park, Albert? Is that on your list of things to walk around?
Yeah, I rode a bike around Stanley Park already. It's very beautiful.
Man. The weather right now is perfect up there, isn't it?
I'm ready for cold weather. I'm tired. We've been getting a heat wave here in California, and it's still kind of warm right now, but I'm ready for the.
There is a fire weather watch in Northern California. Actually, it begins today, so I'm sure Kim will have that in her news. But
I guess I better hustle on that.
Yeah, just to if you don't
have an
news,
iPhone, all your iPhones have a red flag warning on them with that alert about it being fire weather. So
look at you, Albert, with the good tech. And speaking of tech and iPhones, isn't it true that Jefferson Graham will be here today?
Yeah,
it's Tech Tuesday. That's what we like, things that are alliterative on this show. So we like Tech Tuesday, and what else is alliterative?
Friday Fabulous Florida.
Friday Fabulous Florida. Thank you. We really always we go for hack alliteration on this show whenever possible. And when we can't go for hack alliteration, we just go for hack. So there you have it. We love our.
We're gonna start playing YMCA whenever we're just done.
Yeah. Is that what he played?
Do you want to take a break? He played some other weird song, and then at the end he played YMCA. I know, I sat through way too much of it, but it was just so weird. Really weird.
It was pretty odd, that's for sure. Yeah, it's true, but
it was like at this plane crash or car crash, you couldn't look away.
yeah, he has that effect.
Pick a vehicle. Honestly, it was really, really strange.
He is an interesting guy. He's what I've really seen in him, and I think I know we're kind of in the mad dash to the election. So those who say, "Gosh, you talk about Trump all the time," yeah, well, because the election is so close now, I think you are allowed to speak about Trump and Kamala Harris and the back and forth between them and where we are in the state of the race. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. You're allowed right now. But what I was going to say is it strikes me the more I watch him, two things strike me. A, he's become even more extreme in those things he says. And he says them with an unapologetic tone and with an unapologetic propaganda-laden speech pattern. That is to say, talking about rapists and coming from the asylums. And I mean, that which he says is just laden with all of these explosive kinds of references like that. But he's also fundamentally, I think, and this is what he's always been, Donald Trump is an entertainer. He's a performer. He's always tried to build his brand. He's always been a hack businessman, a poor businessman, multiple bankruptcies. Bankruptcies can be a strategic move. But when you take thriving businesses and you run them into the side of a mountain, the way Donald Trump has, over and over again, one has to question your business acumen. You really notice how little he understands about business when he speaks before economic forums, when he's actually engaged in any kind of back and forth about the markets. He knows nothing. It's all just a show. So he likes those things when he's on the stump that let him sort of play the crowd, do the back and forth. He has a little crowd work he does in everything, and then he plays for the applause line, and he'll say whatever. And so when you talk about what he was doing in terms of stopping the showdown and all this kind of thing, it's just all part of the raucousness that is associated with his events. And I think we've seen it time and time again. Now, the interesting thing is, America, I guess, is up for a show. It's that Johnny Lang song, "Lie to Me, Go Ahead and Lie to Me." And Trump makes the statements up, meaning makes up statistics. I heard him talking to the Chicago Economic Forum today about the trade deficit. I'm thinking, dude, you're absolutely making these things up. And any kind of statistic he pulls is fictional. So anyway, the more I watch him, just the more I think he is just the entertainer.
It's weird because the things he said with him just the last week, I almost think it's self-sabotage in a way. He goes to Detroit and he insults the city before the people of Detroit, right? Okay? He goes to California and says, "I'm not giving you any wildfire aid," before the fine people of California. He's ramped up the name calling. It's almost like, I don't know if the stress is getting to him. I don't know what's happening, but it's like it's almost like watching a self-implosion.
Yeah, I could. There he is. This is
the
when
weird
he was
dancing.
just doing his dancing or whatever. Yeah. Well, we can't play the music because we'll get copyright strikes. But I mean, all right, I take your point. The reason I'm halting at all is, in the case of the California thing, let me try. I hate to always do this, guys, but let me just.
Weirdest thing.
I try to be fair a little bit. So let me take the devil's advocate position, okay? If you go to San Francisco, which I'm going to be doing in a couple of hours, and you talk to the people of San Francisco, and you say, "We're going to clean the city up. It's a dump. The crime is out of control. It's really gotten beyond any kind of acceptable limit." a lot of people in San Francisco are going to agree with you. All right. So when Trump says, I'm going to make Newsom do this, or I'm going to take away his fire money, I think he's talking to a crowd that is sort of on his side. After all, they've shown up at his rally. And when he's in Detroit and he insults Detroit, maybe there are a bunch of Detroiters who think, yeah, the city needs to be cleaned up more. You know, I don't know, but I guess what I'm trying to say is just because he's...
No.
It's absolutely not out of any politician's playbook to insult the city that you're in. Don't get me wrong, okay? But I'm just trying to
Here's the thing with taking away wildfire money. He's standing in Coachella Valley in Southern California in an area where it doesn't matter whether, you know, he was referencing cesspools of Los Angeles and San Francisco, but he's taking away, allegedly, fire money from Republicans, people that voted.
Yeah, Kim dropped out a little bit, but I get it. He's taking that money away from people who voted for him, from people who live in California. He's hurting the whole state. He's not just hurting the libs.
He's hurting his own voters, and he's hurting people in regions that are affected by wildfires.
I'll accept that. I'll accept that. I don't think he's threatening both states. If you don't vote for me, you're going to have problems. Dancer said, I think he's threatening both states. If you don't vote for me, you're going to... Well, yeah. Well, he's all about threats now. That's right. You know, if the Jews don't put me in, let's blame the Jews. If the Californians don't put him in, let's blame the Californians. If the, you know, the blacks, you blacks, I've been better for you than, you know, that... If Biden or this is the truth. Ricky is it'll be very, very dangerous when he loses only 1-0.
That's true.
Brandon says if Biden or Harris dance like that at a rally, the right would say they are demented. When does it? It's like your great grandpa dancing at a party. He's not good, but you cheer him on. When he does it, it's like your great grandpa dancing at a party. Yeah, look, if Kamala Harris had pulled out of the 60 Minutes debate, you'd still be hearing about how she pulled out of it, okay? If Kamala Harris only did friendly conversations and interviews, you'd only hear more and more in the way of derision about Kamala Harris and the interviews she chooses. There is a quality of letting the right get away with a lot.
If Kamala Harris had said, we just need one rough hour... rough up the American people, send in the military after the American people. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, she'd be gone. What is it about him that we let him get away with and it's getting wilder and wilder and wilder? I don't understand.
This from Maud. I don't know. We can vet this. Although I don't see any reason she would. Early voting results are from Florida. And Dems are ahead as of today. Is that right? Go Villages, she says. That's my favorite part of it.
I thought that across the country we didn't start counting until Election Day.
That's my thinking too. Yeah, they don't start counting. It's just that's just not the way it works.
Unless they took exit polls from I don't know.
Yeah. On Fox News, get her butt on Fox for the tough question, says Edward Lee. Do you have, Albert, that thing I sent you from Brett Baier on Fox News? He was just, this is not so much instructional in the sense that there are no real revelations here, but they do, you know, in Fox land, they are peacocking about the fact that they have the Kamala Harris sit down. Do you have it, Albert? I sent it to you. Go ahead. Here's a little bit of it. Brett Baier being interviewed on Fox News.
Good morning. You listen to a lot of those podcasts.
I do.
Dana.
I'm an enthusiast. It keeps me sharp.
Yeah, it took a long time, the back and forth of the campaign. I've obviously asked, a lot of us have, for interviews. I was also asking about a debate that we were trying to have, a final closing arguments.
Stop for a second, Albert. Stop for a second.
Said,
I just have to say, Brett
Baier
looks like a cartoon character if you had to draw it of an anchorman. I mean, he is unbelievably...
well cast.
Jagged jaw, perfect Superman hair. I mean, it's unreal. It did not hit me until just now. You'll forgive me for commenting on it. But if you were literally drawing a cartoon picture of an animated anchorman, this is the stereotypical anchorman who you would draw. Now, Albert, please.
Philadelphia, and I could have a sit down. So the time is roughly 25 to 30 minutes. We were trying to do it live, but they gave us the time 5 p.m. Eastern time. As you know, my show starts at 6. So we're doing it pre-tape, but wanted to wait until we got the commercial structure. So now we do, thanks to the folks above. We are going to run it uninterrupted, unedited, all the way, maybe 30 minutes, the first part of a special report, and then we'll have a panel discussion about it afterwards. So that's how it came about. It's been a long time in the making, and I'm in the making of how it's going to be structured.
Yeah, I'm curious.
So there you have it. And then they're all talking, well, maybe you can get her to come by the 5. That's how the rest of that conversation went. Yeah, Johnny Bravo. Thank you, No Contendo. That's exactly it. He looks like Johnny Bravo. God, that's a great call. Perfect. Florida counts all of its ballots on Election Day, while it can take weeks in California.
Yeah. But so just to let you know, I don't know where the information came that the votes are being counted already, but I don't think that's true.
Yeah, that just doesn't happen anywhere. But yes, thank you, Ricky O'Bear. Hit the thumbs up button and then subscribe to the show if you would. Thank you for being here. I mean, we love everybody, those who are new. We've come from a talk radio station, very popular talk radio station that went away as a result of a broadcast conglomerate that got rid of it. And we're here on our home platform live every day, 2 to 4 in the East, 11 to 1 in the West. And we're available as a podcast on iHeartRadio, on the Spotify platform, on Apple Podcasts, all of the different places where you hear it just as an audio, if you want it here as an audio offering only. Lucy McAllister, my favorite McAllister is true. Kim's name is McAllister. A lot of people feel as though
Kim, how are you?
When I say Lucy's my favorite, that I'm comparing the two of them. And I am. Thank you. Yes. And Lucy is my favorite. And thank you for a $9.99 super sticker. A late day. Congrats and many thanks to a day late. Yeah, because we are at our 2-year anniversary yesterday. Nutritionist Liz says, a day late. Congrats and many thanks to my favorite YouTube show. That's kind of a big deal, as I don't have a TV. In my heart, this is 100 times more.
That's so
nice.
So
great. Well, thank you very much. And
I love that.
Nutritionist Liz.
Big shout out.
The official nutritionist of this show, reaching us. We are nothing if not a monument to nutrition on this show. No Contendo says, Steve Chung gone. I called this weeks ago, saying heads would roll with 45 outsourcing to Elon, causing internal strife, definitely infighting and campaign issues. This is true. Kim might have it in her news, but there is a question particularly about the ground game when it comes to Trump. And the ground game, as you know, is very important. Some may say, I mean, again, this is in the old school / contemporary world of politics, meaning I still think it's a contemporary concern, but it's sort of an old school way of thinking that the ground game at this stage of a campaign is critical, getting your vote out. And the Democrats, it's thought, have a really good ground game, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. The Trump ground game, less established, certainly, and more of a question mark. And Elon Musk and his people are handling all of that. That led to a lot of strife within Trump land as Trump sidled up to Elon Musk, and that explains some of the turmoil in the Trump campaign today. So there's that.
Have you seen this story? I think this is a pretty big deal.
Judge in Georgia says county election officials cannot delay or decline certification of election results. Mm-hmm. Well, there is a bill that they passed. The governor signed it, saying that election officials can delay it. Certification.
Yeah, well,
so
it went to
they're
court.
headed for another court case. Go ahead. Yeah.
It went to court, and county election officials in Georgia are not able to do what they wanted to do. It's being called a blow to efforts by conservatives to gain the legal right to reject results based on the suspicion of fraud or abuse. So here's what the judge said. Election superintendents in Georgia have a mandatory fixed obligation to certify election results. Consequently, no election superintendent or member of a board of elections or registration may refuse to certify or abstain for certifying election results under any circumstance.
Wow.
Boom.
That's a pretty stern.
Good day, sir.
Yeah, it's pretty. That's a pretty stern decision. Pretty decisive decision. Yeah.
I mean, I was really worried about that. So I don't know about you, but I was thinking, God, they're finding all kinds of ways to cheat. At least in Georgia, it looks like that avenue has been closed off.
It continues to be a real issue. You're right to be concerned with it, I think. And it's not only an issue in Georgia, it can be an issue in other states as well, as you find, rural communities where you just don't quite have the oversight that you might. And in a close election, you can end up with those rural communities really affecting things. I'm talking about in Pennsylvania, in swing states. So Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, it still really likely comes down to that.
The issue of a reasonable inquiry into election results is still pending, but the certification issue has been dealt with.
No.
Yeah.
All right, Kim, with some breaking news. Thank you for that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Meantime, there is some polling stuff. I know you're probably saying, oh, polling, what does it mean, polling? This, I thought, was just a bit instructive for the way in which this poll focuses on certain voters and the voters that might underpin support for Kamala Harris, let's say, or Donald Trump. Albert, you have it in the gate now. Let's see a little bit of that. The CNN report on voters. Here we go.
Who generally votes for Democrats? Who generally votes for Republicans? It might all be changing. Here to explain what we are seeing, CNN senior data reporter Harry Enton. Look, we've been talking about black voters the last few days and some shifts there, but there are significant shifts that benefit Vice President Harris when it comes to women.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. So, if you look at, is Harris doing better than Biden 2020? White men, she's not. Women of color, she's not. Men of color, she's not. But among white women, in fact, she is. In fact, it's to a historic degree. So let's take a look here. The GOP's margin among white women, look, Romney won him by 9, all right? Trump in 2016 won him by 6. You go back 4 years ago, Trump won him by 7. Look now, look how much lower Trump's margin is among white women. Look, he still leads, but it's well within the margin of error. It's just a point. He's doing 6 points worse than he did 4 years ago. In fact, he's doing the worst, if this holds, for a GOP candidate this century among white women, John.
Well, how much do white women matter in the electorate?
So this is the whole thing, right? How much do they matter? If you were to break it down, white women, white men, women of color, men of color, white women make up the plurality of the electorate. 36%. So, yesterday we were talking about those massive gains that Donald Trump was making among black men, black women. But the bottom line is they actually make up a considerably smaller portion of the electorate than white women do. So when we're talking about 5-6 point shifts, 7 point shifts in Kamala Harris's direction, we're talking about that among a major part of the electorate. And that can actually move the overall electorate more than ginormous shifts among a considerably smaller part of the electorate.
You can just
John.
do the math. More than double the impact, depending on how it all spaces itself out. Why?
Why? I think that this gets at a pretty good reason why. All right.
Yeah,
abortion is the top voting issue. We're going to look at
Really?
in Pennsylvania.
Hey, Columbo,
Wisconsin,
do you really need this explained? I think the Dobbs decision, as noted by shadow producer Calvin Wong, really. I mean, seriously, it's the power of that decision, that horrifying decision.
Imagine
taking
that.
away women's reproductive freedoms, taking away the choice that they have, the conversation they have with their doctor. Yeah.
Imagine that we would be really pissed off about that.
What do you think the reason is for that, Bob? Excuse me.
I'll take the opportunity as well.
I'm having a cup of Coachella Valley coffee. I have the Elgato Espresso. I have a little French press, a mini French press of it right here, you see. And I just pour it into my awaiting mug, and ecstasy is but
vanilla
seconds away.
iced tea. Oh, it's so good.
Oh, yes. The iced tea is terrific, too. You should go to CoachellaValleyCoffee.com and use our discount code, and you'll get 10% off everything on the site. Everything and anything. There is time for Kim's News. Then we've got Jefferson Graham. Again, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com and use our discount code MARKT at checkout for 10% off anything on the site. Coffee, tea, whatever it might be. I'm just looking ahead, and I see David Cay Johnston will be here in the second hour. I also see that we have significant Trump news. I have a chunk of Trump. I have Trump at the Economic Forum. I believe it's in Chicago. I watched a bunch of it this morning. It was fascinating, and I can't wait to talk to David about that. Got a lot more, too, when it comes to voter suppression. There's a major story emerging state to state about how the vote is being suppressed. It's good old voter suppression. It's what America has done since the very beginning, and we'll talk to David about that as well. Smash the like button if you would. Smash it like a boss.
Smash it.
Yes,
with your iron.
Smash it.
With your iron rod.
Yeah, do it with your iron rod. Smash the like button. It costs you nothing, helps us in the world of YouTube. Thank you for being here. Kim's News. Jefferson Graham, Chunker Trump, David Cay Johnston. Big day ahead. Thanks for being here.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is indeed sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Yeah. Let's talk about this election. Vice President Harris and former President Trump are appearing at high-profile media events today. With just 3 weeks until Election Day, Harris is taking part in a radio town hall in Detroit aimed at black entrepreneurs. Meanwhile, Trump sat down at an economic roundtable in Chicago ahead of taping a Fox News town hall with an audience of women that will air tomorrow. This, by the way, after he said he will never appear on Fox News again because they're interviewing Kamala Harris as well. Okay,
yeah, that was a big thing. He went after Fox, big time. And he went after Bret Baier. Yeah.
I guess he is actually going on Fox again.
Right.
Empty threats.
How about that?
A Republican-led congressional panel is
His word is usually so good, you can really count on it. Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Take that to the bank.
Right.
A Republican-led congressional panel is investigating Fulton County DA Fonnie Willis's prosecution of former President Trump. Former Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade is appearing for a closed-door deposition today about the election interference case. Wade was forced to step down after admitting his romantic relationship with Willis, so now it's a thing. More than 90 people are still listed as missing in western North Carolina as relief efforts continue after Hurricane Helene. Governor Roy Cooper and federal officials there provided the update during a briefing today on how communities are recovering from this deadly storm. FEMA says its disaster survivor assistance teams will resume normal operations after threats made against workers impacted their regular services over the weekend.
I mean, we talked about this a bit. Yeah, thank you. I know you were going to say, imagine that you can't get
people coming to help you.
Yeah.
And you threaten them. What?
Right. Yeah. Disaster workers had to relocate because of safety concerns. They had, legit fears that there was going to be violence. There were these militias, they identified 2 of them, and truckloads of militia that were targeting relief workers there in North Carolina. So you complain about FEMA, then you complain about it enough, you create this lie, and then people act on it. The same way you created the election lie. It's a remarkable thing that's happening. There are real world effects. And then let me just say this last thing, and I'll probably say this again at some point during the show and maybe tomorrow, because I think it's a real threat. What you're seeing with FEMA workers and the way in which militias were assembled to the point that FEMA had to pull back their workers because of safety concerns, I believe you're going to see that with poll workers, election workers. I think that's the next frontier that Trump and his cronies and MAGA Nation is going to go after. And I really believe that this effectiveness, if you will, it's an evil effectiveness that these lies have had that will be put in place and targeted toward the election. We'll see.
Yeah, I really hope you're wrong about that.
I hope I'm wrong as well, of course.
Sadly, probably not. We saw what happened to poll workers last time. Trump has canceled a planned interview with CNBC's Squawk Box. The former president pulled out of a scheduled interview. One of the hosts is announcing this morning. They say the Trump campaign had initially agreed to an in-studio appearance. He decided no, he's going to not do this, just like he didn't do 60 Minutes. So, and again, I mean, all over the place.
If Kamala Harris is canceling these interviews the way he is, I mean, he's canceling interviews the way airlines cancel flights in a snowstorm. I mean, this guy's canceling everything that might in any way be objective or push back on him. Also, CNBC, that should really be a friendly port for him. You know, he's a big market guy. The economy did so well under me. Now it's in the tank. Well, of course, the reality is the economy isn't in the tank. The markets are surging. The economy seems healthier than any other economy in the developed world, even as Americans do deal with inflation and having to pay too much for a lot of the things that are associated with, staples, if you will, eggs and food and fuel. But these realities about how healthy the economy is, he doesn't want to confront them, and he would have to confront them on CNBC.
Early voting is getting underway in 2 more states today. Voters in Georgia can now head to the polls to cast their ballot. Utah will start sending mail-in ballots to eligible voters. 46 states and Washington, D.C. have started some form of early voting. 13 more begin as the week continues. I don't know about you guys. Here in California, I've got my ballot sitting on the kitchen table. I still have some more research to do for local races, but it's ready to go.
Yeah.
After a review of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, the Defense Department is now honorably discharging about 800 service members. The 1993 policy that allowed LGBTQ individuals to serve as long as they didn't publicly state their sexual orientation or gender identity was repealed in 2011. The Pentagon launched a review last year of LGBTQ plus service members' records who were discharged with less than honorable status, and now they're changing that status. Fall open enrollment has started for Medicare Advantage. Time to sign up. Medicare Advantage enrollment which began Tuesday, is expected to reach more than 25 million people, half of the total Medicare enrollment. Medicare Advantage is a Medicare health plan offered by private companies that have a contract with Medicare. I don't know about you. I sat down with my mom to try to figure all this out. It can be really complicated.
Some of the toughest paperwork you'll ever be faced with is associated with health insurance.
And it seems like once you make the decision, that's it. Like, you're done.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you're doing that, it's like you can't go back. Wait a minute. I picked the wrong...
Nope. Sorry.
Nope.
No soup for you. That's enough. There's a new study that shows children who get the coronavirus are more prone to getting diabetes. The research published in JAMA Network Open shows children are 50% more likely to get type 2 diabetes in the first 6 months after they contract the coronavirus infection. Researchers at the Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine in Cleveland say the risk is even higher for children who are obese. And of course, we know there's a problem with that as well. A new law is finally going to save Californians money at the pump. Hooray. Governor Gavin Newsom signed it yesterday after approval by the state assembly. It requires refineries will keep a minimum amount of fuel on hand. If they go down for maintenance, that fuel will be readily accessible. This will avoid supply shortages that drive up gas prices every few months in California. Governor Newsom says he's not waiting around for the industry to do the right thing, claiming big oil continues to lie and is the polluted heart of the climate crisis. Wow, tough words.
Yeah, he always is good with those words.
Mm-hmm. The state's top prosecutor is praising the law to prevent the gas prices from spiking. Attorney General Rob Bonta says drivers have been paying too much to fill up in California, while oil companies report record profits at their expense. And he said, enough is enough. There are crews bracing for extreme fire danger this week in Northern California. A fire weather watch will be in effect Thursday through Saturday for the Bay Area, Sacramento, Lake County, part of San Joaquin Valley, and most of the Central Coast as well. This is due to strong winds and low humidity, which could lead to new and fast-moving wildfires. The National Weather Service is urging everyone have an emergency plan in place. And of course, during the fire weather watch, bad time to, mow the lawn with a gas-powered mower. Bad time to do the weed whacking. Don't start any fires. Watch that barbecue. All of those things as well. There is a whooping cough outbreak spreading across California. Nearly 600 cases have been reported so far this year. That's almost 5 times as many as last year. Experts predict it will get worse as the CDC says nationwide cases are at a 10-year high. Babies are most at risk of becoming infected here, often gasping for air. I don't know if you've ever heard whooping cough, but it's the most awful sound. Doctors advise keeping newborns at home, avoiding crowds, and to get children and adults vaccinated against whooping cough.
Yeah, I thought there was a vaccination against it.
There
exactly.
There is. As a matter of fact, for new parents, they have you get it before you even leave the hospital.
Yeah.
More layoffs are coming from a nonprofit health plan provider just before the holidays. Blue Shield of California will let 61 employees go by December 11th in 5 counties: Los Angeles, Alameda, El Dorado, Sacramento, San Joaquin. It's less than 1% of the workforce, follows 140 layoffs in January. The company says to provide affordable health care, they have to reduce administrative costs and ensure that the right talent is in place. So cut for Blue Shield of California. That's a bummer to see people lose their jobs.
Yeah, it's not the time that you want to be losing it. Now, there's no good time to do it, but with the holidays approaching, for sure, it's not good.
It's never a good time to lose the job. Today, I was going to tell you, the 3rd installment in the Venom franchise. If you watch the Venom franchise, it's more of a Michael Snyder story.
I haven't, but I'm excited about the 3rd installment. Tell me about it.
Venom: The Last Dance is expected to make $70 million in its first weekend in theaters.
Wow.
I know, it's a lot.
I've never seen anything like it.
It's sure, I've never seen it at all. But
no, it would be the second best opening for a comic book movie this year, behind Deadpool and Wolverine. So it actually hits theaters October 25th. Ew, that's such a gross picture.
Yeah.
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
I must tell you that the creature doesn't look fake to me. It looks real. That's what's so scary.
It's freaky.
I have to constantly be reminded it's only a movie.
No.
I don't have the my constitution is not strong enough to handle Venom Part 3.
I don't think I can handle it.
But a lot of people apparently are not only going to handle it, they're going to rush to the theater to see it.
We were talking a little bit about Vice President Kamala Harris and all the media that she's doing. She will take part again in a radio town hall today aimed at black voters with Charlemagne the God.
Oh, yeah.
She's also agreed to her first formal sit-down interview with Fox News tomorrow, and then reports say her campaign is speaking with popular podcaster Joe Rogan about an interview. We need to get her on the Mark Thompson show, I guess.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Trump is in Chicago. He's going to head to Georgia to tape that Fox News.
I'll tell you that I think the Joe Rogan idea is a real good one. There's an idea somehow that Joe Rogan is going to be super tough. I think that Joe Rogan is, don't get me wrong. I'm not a huge, I've seen great stuff that Joe Rogan does, and then I've seen insanely scary stuff that Joe Rogan both does and says. So, but I'm just assuming he'll land somewhere in the middle with Kamala Harris.
Does it lend him credibility, though, for her to appear on his podcast? Because he has he can kind of get sucked down the conspiracy theory pathway.
No question about it. He's not as bad as Alex Jones or some others, but the credibility is already there. You know what, Kim? I just think I get your question or the implied point, which is, do you really want to give him more credibility by showing up on his show? But the answer is he reaches a lot of people, and you need to reach those people. Now, the last thing I'll say, and this is sort of a general point, I don't think at this point many people are changing their mind, but I think you can motivate people to vote. So right now, both sides need to get their vote out. Maybe she can move the meter a little bit. It's going to be an incredibly close election, so if you can move it a little bit, that might be all you need. So again, I think you hold your nose and you do it.
When Trump goes to Fox, he's supposed to sit down at this town hall full of an audience of women, which could be really bad for him, given how we discussed that women are pretty angry about the whole Roe v. Wade thing.
Right.
But I'm sure they'll pack it with Trump-loving ladies, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, he generally stocks the pond, for sure.
Lastly, for the Swiftie in your life, we have a new holiday gift aboard. Taylor Swift giving fans an inside look at her Eras Tour with a new holiday book this season. The official Taylor Swift The Eras Tour book will be released exclusively at Target stores on Black Friday, with an online release the following day. This is a 256-page book with more than 500 pictures, including never-before-seen performance photos from each era.
I've never seen anything like it.
No.
Okay, well.
Swift has also written personal reflections about the record-breaking tour that will be included. Each of these books, $40, and Target thinks they're going to sell out really, really fast. There's the book. Yeah.
I think that's actually priced to move at $40. Don't you think?
I mean, I guess it's kind of a coffee table book. I don't know.
I think 50 would be the price point where you start to lose people. 40 is doable. What do I know? But I'm just saying.
Happy holidays.
RH said, I will definitely go out and not buy that book. Okay. $50 a book, says Calvin? No, it's 40 though.
$40 a book, yeah. $40 at Target. Mm-hmm.
Sir, what's it going to take to get you into one of our Taylor Swift books today? $40.
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
Okay.
This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they've got this huge, huge selection of coffees. Amazing teas. I love the vanilla and the Moroccan mint. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com is the website. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And we've got this exclusive 10% off for Mark Thompson Show listeners/viewers.
It's an exclu.
It's an exclu. You just go to the CoachellaValleyCoffee.com website.
Yes.
And then when you get to the code at the checkout, you put in Mark T all together, and you see the money fly off of your total. You click submit, and off you go, waiting for your coffee and tea.
Well, I love that you're taking me through it step by step, and it
You're
does
welcome.
work with anything on the site.
Yeah.
This
anything.
is, again, it is fresh crop. These are fresh beans. They are hand roasted for coffee drinkers. It's huge. You can find discount beans all over the internet. You can find cheaper beans, of course. Those have been sitting around for months. Those are oftentimes, they're trying to move that stuff out. Those are old beans. These are fresh, hand roasted. They take tremendous pride in the products that they offer. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. You will not be disappointed. There are tasting notes on all the different beans and all the different roastings. They're really a terrific group of people, and I think you're just going to be elated to be doing business with them. And as Kim says, you'll get 10% off with our discount code MARKT at checkout. So,
before I close it out, let me just tell you that CNN is reporting that people in Georgia appear to be heading to the polls in record numbers, more than 122,000 ballots cast so far during the first day of early voting in Georgia. So things are going pretty well there.
Coachella Valley
never
Coffee
been anything like this.
Could have sold a ton of coffee if they would have sent buses for the MAGA crowd that were stranded. Remember? Yeah, that's true. Trump bussed a bunch of people in. We had the story yesterday in Chunk of Trump, and then didn't bus them out. The bus never came. There were no shuttles arranged for them to actually be taken out of his Coachella rally. And so there were many there in the night as it got cold, waiting for some kind of transportation or having to cobble together transportation. You're right.
Like
it would have been an opportunity.
Thousands of people, thousands of them standing there. It's a 2-mile walk to wherever. This was crazy.
Yeah. The walk could do a lot of them good, but I agree. It's probably, it's not optimal. You know, they're out there in the sun and the heat, and then the bus never shows. Yeah.
I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
It is, Kim. It is.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
Yes, it is our 2-year anniversary. Thank you for all the love. We've really taken a chance here, and it's worked out for 2 years. And honestly, it's because of the support of the audience. So I know shows say it and people say it, but I absolutely, to my DNA, feel without the support of this audience, we would not be here. I know we wouldn't be able to make payroll without your financial support, but also the way you share the show has helped grow the show. So thank you so much for everyone who showed up yesterday in such big numbers and helped us celebrate. I saw an incredible donation today. Robert Martin, did you see this? $200, $199.99. I mean, it is, first of all, big shout out to Robert Martin. Wow. And I'm not going to cry, but I mean, I do think it is cry worthy. That is extraordinary, sir. Thank you very, very much. Yeah. Wow. Robert Martin. And I don't recognize the name. Like, I don't know that. Here it is. Here he wrote us a note. Mark, finally found you after 2 years. Oh. The votes here in Florida are not counted. Yeah. What has been counted are the number of ballots turned in by registered voters. So more Dems have turned in more ballots. So he sets the record straight on that. That's by the way, we kind of said that. We kind of corrected it a bit, but he put some specifics on it, which are like the Democrats have turned in more ballots, and as a result, that's sort of encouraging thus far, very early, obviously. Robert, thank you again for your help in keeping us going.
So I wonder if, and we have to get to Jefferson Graham, I wonder if when you're looking at how many ballots are turned in early, if early voting has increased in the state of Georgia and the state of Florida, is that usually a positive sign for Democrats or Republicans, or do we not know?
Well, I mean, typically early voting and mail-in voting has been a Democratic thing. Republicans tend to vote day of. Again, that's sort of an old school interpretation. Things are changing, but you know, if you apply the old school yardsticks, that would be the, you know. And by the way, yardstick is an old school thing to say. Yeah, I mean, people don't say yardstick anymore. So, you know, I'm just saying that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
How about it for this guy who was a longtime tech writer for USA Today? Now he has Photo Walks TV. Jefferson Graham, hello.
Happy anniversary, Mark.
Our time is short, but thank you, sir. You were very helpful. Everyone should know this in helping to get us up and going because there are a lot of technical hurdles and challenges. And Jeff was so cool to actually come to the studio and help us with lighting, with shooting certain things, but also with the technical resistance that you get from YouTube. So I really never will forget that, and I really appreciate it. But what have you done for me lately, Jefferson Graham? All right, now there's a new iPad. I just saw that breaking in our
breaking news, a new iPad mini for $500 that is faster and will accept the new AI features that will be coming out at the end of the month. For our price-conscious listeners and viewers, you can still buy a 10-inch iPad for $350. This one is 8.3 inches, so it's about 2 inches larger than an iPhone and about 2 inches smaller than the regular iPad. So it just depends on how fast and what compact means to you. But it's just yet another iPad that Apple has to confuse people like Mark Thompson, who bought one a year ago, right?
Well, I did buy one a year ago, and I also had some years ago bought the iPad mini, when it first came out, because I didn't really want a big iPad to haul around. But I also had the iPhone, and you've just pointed out, it's about the same size. And I realized, I kind of wish I had a bigger iPad for watching movies and this sort of thing. And then I've got the iPhone, which is essentially the same size as the iPad mini. Yeah.
So this is the iPhone 16 Plus, which is 6.7 inches.
Right.
So that's about 1.5 inches smaller than the new iPad. I don't have an iPad here to show up, but you guys know what they're like. They are a little big, but they look. But watching movies on them is great, as you know.
Yeah, which is, I think, one of the things that they're really used for. Now I want to ask you about this, just because it's cool. There's a drone. It seems everybody's got one. They're $200. Go ahead. Show me. Now, you'll outfit that with a camera, or it has a camera?
No, the camera is built in. This is a $200 drone that flies automatically. You look at it. Mm-hmm. It senses you, as you can see right there in the B-roll. Then it just starts taking off. And then you put your hand up when you're ready for it to come down, and it comes to your hand and lands in your hand. How cool is that?
That is pretty trick. And the only thing I would ask you is, so this, when you're on a beach by yourself, I can see how it works. It only sees you and your hand. But when you're in a street scene or something, you probably can't use it.
I did it on my street. It worked, but I don't have a lot of cars going up and down the street. But it was enough to make me nervous to really want to test it well.
Sure, and it's not even just cars. I'm talking about being on a street, on a sidewalk. You do a lot of stuff. You know, from wherever, Beijing or wherever the hell you are.
Yeah, Tahiti. Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah. So I mean, there are other people around. That might be a problem. So is there a way that you can go manual with it? It must be. There's like a manual override?
You'd have to go spend some money to do the manual override.
I see.
I'll go try it on the street.
Yeah, try it on the street.
Before we meet up next week. It's a shame because I was on, believe it or not, I was on Hollywood Boulevard this morning at 5 a.m. and I could have tried it there. But again, there was nobody there. I was shooting.
You're trying it in all these places where nobody's around, right? I get it. Yeah. It's great if nobody's around. What about this robot event that Musk is headed up? You want to talk about that?
So last Thursday, he called it We Robot. He introduced a self-driving car that he claims will be available for mass audiences by 2027. And yeah, right. Okay.
It's a pretty cool looking car, I'll say that.
It's a cool looking car. And if he can get through all the government regulation and all the state's regulations and have a car on the street in 3 years, that would be amazing. But I don't see that happening.
Well, he's pretty close to a guy who might become president, and he might help, if he becomes president, cut through all of the administrative red tape.
General Motors and Google have been trying this for the last several years, and they've logged millions and millions of miles of tests, and they're only in 3 cities. And there have been a lot of problems. There have been some deaths. There have been some accidents. There was this awful thing in Chinatown in San Francisco where a bunch of people just started attacking the car and put it on. They set it up in flames. So anyway.
Well, I would say one thing. I mean, and again, I'm not to take a side, although I think that they're generally safe and it's a pretty sound. That's the Musk version of the driverless car. But that's not an error on the part of the car. That's an error on the part of those who are creating mayhem around it to set it on fire.
If we live in a world where nobody is driving, self-driving cars will be fantastic. Much safer than what we're driving now. But when's that going to happen? What do you think, Mark? 20, 30, 40, 50 years? How long does it take?
I think the key is to find the proper mix. There must be a tipping point at which you have enough driverless cars on the road that you don't have a lot of these issues to which you've referred. You know what I'm talking, like the Chinatown issue was, I think, mayhem. But as you say, one car ran over someone and then backed back over her, as I recall, and yeah, there's some issues and some challenges.
It'd be great to go on the freeway and take a long drive and just sit in the back and take a snooze, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's going to be for the next generation. I could never do that. But I did beta test. I've got David Cay Johnston waiting, so we're going to wrap up. But I did beta test Tesla because I do have a Tesla. And I don't know that I'll get another one now that Musk has become this guy who's but I'm in the last year of my lease. But anyway, I mention it because they did beta test the completely driverless, meaning you don't have to do anything. It's just the auto drive. And one thing it does that I don't like, it's perfectly safe. It runs all the various programs such that you never feel as though you're in danger. But you don't realize when you're driving, you're avoiding like potholes and you're avoiding the road that's chewed up in front of you. And there's a lot of that in our urban environments. It doesn't do that. It just stays between the lanes. So you're going over potholes and you're going over other sort of, pocks in the road that create a much less comfortable drive. And I noticed it almost immediately. But it's cool, but once you get over to the cool factor, there is that. So I don't know how...
Taking it on the freeway, though, would be better because I don't think you get a lot of potholes there.
Yeah, maybe. I think you still run into some objects on the freeway, but could be. Anyway, to be continued. Jefferson Graham, you can find him at PhotoWalks TV. The YouTube series is terrific. I encourage you to check it out. And we love, again, all the contributions you've made on this show. And you've helped make this 2 years happen. So thank you, Jefferson Graham.
Happy anniversary.
Thanks,
to everybody.
Pal. Jefferson Graham, everybody. Love it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
How about it for a Pulitzer Prize winner and co-founder of DCReport.org? He's a multiple best-selling author, and when it comes to Trump, he really is without peer. He's been chronicling Donald Trump from the earliest days of Donald Trump for years and years before anybody really even saw Trump's relevance in politics. He's now a professor at RIT. He joins us on Tuesdays, the great David Cay Johnston. Hey, David.
Hello, Mark.
So there's a lot to get to. And the first thing I wanted to get to was something that I found alarming, and I hinted at where it might go in the last hour. And the alarming thing is the armed militia that were identified in North Carolina as hunting for FEMA recovery people, to the point that FEMA had to pull back their recovery people out of safety concerns for them. And I was saying that I thought the next front for those militia people who are animated by this Trump rhetoric is at the polls and associated with the election. I wonder if you could comment on what's going on in North Carolina, that rhetoric, and maybe what I had said as well.
Well, the Clive and Bundy type folks, he's the rancher who thought it was an offense that he was supposed to pay fees for grazing his animals on federal land. They're not very politically sophisticated, much as they think they are. And they have not been successful in getting people elected to office, I think with some minor exceptions in minor offices in Oregon. So I'm not particularly worried about these people at the ballot box, but I think they do pose a significant danger in other areas. Why would people who are armed want to go after FEMA workers? Well, because they believe this nonsense that FEMA is giving people scrip, not even cash, scrip worth $750, and then seizing their land in return for that. And that's just nonsense. But unfortunately, we're living through this ability, because of social media and the internet, of liars, of crazy people, to spread nonsense. And people who don't have critical thinking skills, people who aren't thinking about the future and who have grievances, they're going to, at least some of them, react to this, and some of them are going to react to it in ways that are both violent and dangerous for others, like the FEMA workers, but also going to essentially, like many of the people on January 6th, throw their lives away. And if I'm sounding apoplectic, because I am, there's no way to get past this without time. There has to be some time that's going to pass. Donald Trump has to fade sort of in the background. People who have behaved like the one fellow who's been arrested, but apparently had a number of confreres, have to get long prison sentences. And some people will be energized by that, but I think most people will get the message, this is nonsense, and if you commit a crime, you go to prison.
They passed a law, Just Give Me the Truth is saying, I think it was Arizona, he says, that allows voter intimidation of worker and voters at the polls under the rationale of free speech. I don't know if they spoke about voter intimidation, but there is a loosening of what you can do when it used to be, David, and maybe it still is everywhere, if you show up to the polls with a gun, I think that's an arrestable offense, isn't it? Or I don't believe you're allowed to show up with a firearm.
It would depend on the local jurisdictions. It would depend on the local jurisdictions. When the Black Panthers, complying with California law, showed up in Sacramento at the state capitol, there was this enormous negative reaction in the passage of new laws, even though the Panthers were complying with the law. We have in a couple of states laws that say you cannot bring water to people standing in line to vote because that's voter interference. You can't leave the line to go get a drink of water or go to a bathroom. You have to give up your place in line. And clearly those are tactics designed to minimize people's ability to exercise their right to vote. I mean, this is the reasons that the 1965 Voting Rights Act was passed, along with the 64 Civil Rights Act, have not gone away, even though John Glover Roberts, our Chief Justice of the United States, insists that everything has changed. Nothing's changed. And suppression is not simply of black voters in the South. Let's remember, indigenous peoples in Arizona and California have faced big hurdles, especially Arizona, to vote for decades, maybe the entire century and a dozen years that Arizona has been a state, or 14 years. But this is something society is going to have to work through, and it's going to take time. And it's unfortunate we are probably going to see some acts of violence that statistically are insignificant, but that politically are very disturbing, given that our democracy is almost 250 years old.
Indeed. And it is true that certain states have considered more restrictions on polling places, even in relation to that comment, as some have loosened restrictions. Many, as I say, at least 5 have considered increased restrictions, those are associated with firearms. But it's interesting to hear you say, wow, we just have to kind of grow out of it. I mean, that's scary.
Well, in the sense that, I mean, we have to get past this as a matter of people becoming familiar with it. You know, when the 19th Amendment took effect in 1920 and women obtained the right to vote universally in the United States, the way the law was implemented basically was that white women could vote. Especially privileged white women, who were a much smaller share of all white women at the time. And we're going through this period because of this cockamamie Supreme Court decision that everybody has a right to own a gun and to carry it. And in some states, the law is you can open carry, you can conceal carry. There's a meme going around on the internet of a man with a gun, open carry, and a pregnant woman who's been raped, forced carry.
Wow.
We get a lot of crazy things that have erupted in our society in this century. And I just think it takes time for things to happen to get to a new and better policy.
Albert, what did I push to you that I wanted David to see? I had a couple of pieces of video I thought might be instructive, David. Albert, was there while Albert gets organized on that, okay, so this is something, David, this is a little bit of a needle drop, so like I don't know exactly whether or not, this is a long-form conversation that Trump was having this morning, okay? I watched it for a long time.
This is the noon, he was questioned before the Detroit Economic Club by the head of Bloomberg News.
Thank you. This is exactly it. I felt a little like you because you watched these things for a long time.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I only knew that it was scheduled.
Okay, so let's just, again, it's a bit of a needle drop. Here's Trump speaking at this economic club in Chicago. Go ahead.
And I called the head of Google.
It says Chicago.
I'm getting a lot of good stories lately, but you don't find them in Google. I think it's a whole rigged deal. I think Google's rigged just like our government is rigged all over the place.
You would break them up, in other words.
I'd do something, but you have to have, look, I give them a lot of credit. They've become such a power, and you got to give them credit for that. How they became a power is, really the discussion. At the same time, it's a very dangerous thing because we want to have great companies. We don't want China to have these companies. Right now, China is afraid of Google. Right now, China is a very powerful, very smart group of people. I will tell you that from very personal
experience. There's an example of a Chinese tech company at the moment, TikTok.
Yeah.
You initially wanted to ban TikTok. Now you like it, apparently for some reason to do with Facebook.
Yeah.
There is a decision coming up. If you became president,
Yeah.
its Chinese parent would have to sell it. I think it's by
Yeah.
January the 19th. Would you force them to do that?
So I originally had it all done. And then I said to Congress, your decision. I said, I'm not going to, pull any strings, nothing. Your decision. You make it. But I had it all done. And I said, you make it. And they decided not to make it. I didn't care if they made it or not, because to me it was a flip of a coin. You have some real First Amendment problems. You have a lot of problems.
You just talked about Chinese technology,
Yeah.
the need to defend against it.
Yeah.
TikTok and the threat people see to many kind of American children and things like that.
Yeah, but
why do you no longer see
I'm
TikTok as a security threat?
I think it is a threat. Frankly, I think everything's a threat. There's nothing that's not a threat. But sometimes you have to fight through these threats. You can't just, like Google. I'm not a fan of Google. They treat me badly. But are you going to destroy the company by doing that? If you do that, are you going to destroy the company? What you can do without breaking it up is make sure that it's more fair. They do treat me very badly. Oh, and he told me, no way. You're the #1 person on all of Google for stories. I mean, which probably makes sense, to be honest with you. I actually believe most of them are bad stories, but these are minor details, right? And it's only bad because of the fake news, because the news is really fake. That's the one we really have to straighten. We have to straighten out our press, because we have a corrupt press. That's the one we really have.
Can I?
Yeah. So he also talked about tariffs, and the guy pushed back on him on tariffs and said tariffs, are a bad idea for the reasons that actually are multiple reasons, but in addition to the inflationary aspect, he was talking about the way that it can these tariffs are actually bad for geopolitics, and the way that we all now have to interact with each other, and you create hostility with your allies, is what he was talking about. This is economic hostility. This is all about economics. Right. So I thought it was interesting that he kind of called him out a bit, but you can see Trump just trumping, working it out in his mind, just filibustering, killing the clock. Didn't you feel that, David?
Oh, absolutely. And you'll notice Donald pivots from here to there when there's no here or there. I think Donald, who I think we all know at this point has very limited reading skills, Donald thinks that the word meme means me. And because notice what he did. He pivoted this to me. I'm being treated badly by the fake news. We have to straighten that out. Google's treating me badly. Yeah, that's the reason we need to have you as president of the United States, to solve your problems and your grievances, not the rest of us. Now, at least in this case, he gave some acknowledgement to the fact that these companies provide benefits to society. But nonetheless, Donald is a dictator, and he wants to be a dictator, and he is used to people accepting whatever he says as the truth. He creates his own reality. And he doesn't know anything. I mean, China is afraid of Google. I'm sorry. If you want to take a break, I'm going to roll on the floor and laugh. I mean, that's absurd. He has the political sophistication of a 7th or 8th grader.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons that you've seen all of these very highly educated and deeply experienced people in national security, diplomacy, international trade, and business development come out against Trump, including 40 of the 44 people who served in his cabinet. He's an ignoramus, and he's managed to persuade a lot of people that he's this genius, and it is astonishing to me, his success at doing that. I mean, it is the reason I call him the world's greatest con man.
It is a remarkable thing that he has. It seems clunky to me. The con seems clunky, but it clearly is not for a lot of other people, or somehow his anger is enough to get them to look past the clunkiness. There's another, Albert, go ahead and play that little mashup that I grabbed for you. This is a little bit more of Trump. This is off of whatever this podcast is called. Go ahead.
And you were right, by the way, Chicago.
Kamala Harris keeps telling us to watch Donald Trump's rallies.
No,
the old man's getting darker and more deranged.
This is not. It's a little ahead of this. I gave you the time code on it. The chip starts at 39 or something, I think. I don't recall. I sent it to you earlier this morning. But if you look, there's a timestamp on it. Anyway, I don't need to see him, but I needed to see Trump in the mashup. There is, while we wait for that, there are more than 230 doctors now and healthcare providers calling on Trump to release medical records.
Right.
Kamala Harris just released hers. He's hidden his medical records, like a squirrel hides nuts for the winter. What's happening there, David?
Well, Donald is never going to release his medical records, all right? He's given us a letter, a made as instructed letter from one of his doctors. He did this before. One of the things I can tell you is from when I first covered Donald 36 years ago till very recently, there is an enormous decline in his cognitive abilities. And we saw this most on display where he brings up, why don't we have some music? And he spends 39 minutes on a stage doing his little, slight move, old stiff white guy dance for 39 minutes. He clearly has serious problems connecting A to B, much less A to F and G. And I think Kamala Harris has hit the right theme on this politically. Show us your records, Donald. I put all of my medical records out there. And then the reason he won't show them to you is he's weak. And that's probably one of the best things she can say about Donald. First of all, infuriate him. And I predict to you that over the next 3 weeks, Donald will say crazier and crazier things as as Kamala Harris baits him. She knows exactly how to let attacks on her roll off her back, but she's very good at baiting Donald. And Walz has been baiting him as well. So I think pushing he's afraid, he is weak, he's unstable. Those are smart political moves by Harris. And then the other problem I think she has to really focus on is this bizarre development in which a significant minority of black men, polls are showing, younger black men under 30, say they're going to vote for Trump. And Barack Obama has been out calling these guys out and saying, man up and get rid of this notion that a woman can't be president. And we'll see how successful that is in changing things. A majority of Gen Z young men who are eligible to vote, they support Kamala Harris, but only by a relatively small margin, which is really very surprising, I think.
Yeah, and a lot was made of that riff that Obama was doing at that campaign headquarters for Harris. We were saying yesterday, the audio wasn't even clean. I mean, it wasn't a set up thing that was supposed to go nationwide.
Right.
I think, but Democrats and libs, there's nothing we like to do more than light up other Democrats and libs. And so he got a lot of blowback for how can you lecture? To me, it was just, there was way too much made of that. It was just talking to a constituency. I'm a tree hugger. If he had come to us and said, hey, you guys as tree huggers, you need to, if you care about the environment, you need to do this. You need to show up. You need to blah, blah, blah. And I wouldn't resent it. I would at least process it. I thought it was a bit of a bad bust on him. But then again, I'm not a young black dude. But I wanted to now get back to that. Then I want to get to, in a second, I just want to mention, Trump, is pressing for a number of ways in which voters will not get a say at the ballot box. They're changing last-minute election structures. He's pressing for these things, for these last minute. I want to get to that in a second, but first, now I have that mashup. It's short. This is Trump, again, playing the hits, but I wanted to get your take on this.
America is known all throughout the world as Occupied America. November 5th, 2024 will be Liberation Day in America. I'm announcing today that upon taking office, we will have an Operation Aurora at the federal level to expedite the removals of these savage gangs. And I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Think of that. We're going to take care of your water situation, and we'll force it down his throat. And we'll say, Gavin, if you don't do it, we're not giving you any of that fire money that we send you all the time for all the forest fires that you have. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
Oof.
I mean, a duly elected, that's good. Thank you, Albert. The duly elected official, Adam Schiff, is part of that riff. He mentions him as part of the radical left that need to be handled. Can you speak to that, please, David?
Well, Donald here is proposing and telling you he will be our dictator, not on day one, but for the rest of his life. I don't know how more clearly he could declare this. And the National Guard, by the way, is under is military, and it's under the control of the governors unless it's federalized. But Donald Trump absolutely will do the following if he becomes president. He will remove every general, admiral, and colonel and Navy captain who stands in his way. He will promote those captains, majors, lieutenant colonels who will do his bidding. And I've been warning about this for 9 years, that the number one sign of a military takeover and a Trumpian dictatorship would be firing these very senior officers, all of whom have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution. And that's all they take an oath to do. Grunts, non-commissioned officers like sergeants, corporals, and privates, they all take an oath to uphold the Constitution and to follow the orders of the president. Our military officers do not do that. It is one of the reasons that our military is so careful about understanding civilian control. Trump has made it very clear that he wants to arrest General Mark Milley, who was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He wants to arrest other military people. And the idea that you're going to send American troops, whether they're from National Guards that you federalized or from the regular Army and other services, to round up Americans you don't like, to round up people who are here illegally or without permission or in some status Trump doesn't like, is so offensive to the rule of law, to the notion of what America is. And notice all of this, Donald always wraps in his grievances about how he is so badly treated. It's just awful, except he doesn't cry like that. But there's a word to describe his appeals to the wrongs he imagines have been done to him. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. And he's a little man. We should treat him like what he is. He's a little man. He's actually a 13-year-old boy trapped in a sick, weak old man's body.
And those who have served with him say that very thing, David. They say that very thing.
And, you know, when I was covering him back in the late 80s and early 90s intensively, my best sources were his senior executives. They were ratting him out all the time because he was horrible to them. He would lie to them. He would set them up for trouble, almost like it was sport for him. He had no loyalty to anybody. He had no loyalty to his customers. I mean, he would literally, the staff, when he was in town in Atlantic City, would want him to hand the keys to some pretty big gamblers, not whales, people who bet $1 million a time, but big gamblers. And he would go to their dinner table and he'd insult them. Well, I'm so glad you're here to give me all your money. You know, this is not good business practice. So they learned to minimize that. Whereas, Steve Wynn came to your table, you would the rest of your life talk about what a charming, wonderful fellow Steve Wynn was, when in fact he was going to take all your money. Donald he didn't have anything. He has no ability to see the world beyond himself. And that so many millions, tens of millions of Americans can't see that says a lot about what's happened to our education system. For a long, long time, I've argued, and I know if there's social studies teachers listening, they're not going to like what I'm about to say, but I don't believe we are in a meaningful way teaching civics anymore, social science. When I went to junior high school in California, in Santa Cruz, you had to pass a test in 8th grade where you had to be able to at least explain the textbook version of how an idea becomes a bill, becomes a law. You had to be able to explain the fundamentals of the Constitution. I can't tell you how many young people I've talked to in the last 15 years or so who think presidents rule by edict. And if you believe that, then a lot of what Donald Trump is doing sort of makes sense. Well, Donald will get in there and he'll do this and that. However, he now has this Supreme Court immunity ruling that any official act of the president is beyond review by anyone. And as an official act, he could do all sorts of horrible, horrible things.
Yeah, I mean, oddly, the edict of a president has more and more power now as a result of that to which you referred, SCOTUS, that decision. I wanted to just finish with this that's happening, and there is a revamp, an attempt to dramatically revamp election rules. I thought this was a good piece in the Hill.
Yeah.
There are a series of lawsuits, other challenges seeking to cull voter rolls, and there are fears that tens of thousands of people who are now registered voters will be removed as qualified voters. Now, again, Democrats also have their lawyers trying to prevent this from happening, but it's become a far more complicated and dangerous legal situation because it's being essentially pursued in so many different states all at once. And an increasing number of local figures, they note, are questioning the validity of election results and demanding reviews of voting procedures in the wake of the Trump efforts to overturn the election that he lost. In some cases, they're being backed by new policies allowing them to do so. You know about the Georgia State Election Board in August. We talked about that. Giving local officials the ability to conduct a, quote, reasonable inquiry before they certify election results. There was just a judge, Kim had the story earlier, who has now ruled in Georgia that you have to certify the election results in a timely manner. So you can't just park it. So that may be an ongoing thing. They're MAGA-aligned Republican lawyers that are pursuing state by state these growing election changes that will favor election skeptics, David. I wonder if you can speak to this and how relevant this will be for an election that's so close.
Well, a little historical context. Why do we vote on Tuesdays? Because historically that was a way to prevent working people from voting. And the people who owned the employers, whether it was the blacksmith shop in the Hudson Valley of New York or it was a steel mill in Pennsylvania, this is a way to limit voting, to keep people from voting. So then we got laws that said, well, your employer has to give you time off to vote. Yeah, lots of luck enforcing that. But mail-in voting is one of the ways to respond to this, to allow people to vote and vote on their own schedule. The Republican Party for almost a half century was under a court order from a federal judge in New Jersey not to engage in a variety of vicious voter suppression tactics that the Republicans had been developing and refining in the 1950s and early 60s, especially as the civil rights movement took hold in this country. And Chief Justice John Glover Roberts lifted that order. We don't need that anymore. That kind of behavior stopped. Well, of course, it's back with a vengeance. If you know you can't win at the ballot box fair and square, you turn to cheating if you are immoral. If you don't care about the principle of majority rule with protections for the minority. And if you believe, as Donald Trump keeps preaching, that the people who oppose him, they're just not loyal Americans who want different policies. They're traitors, they're scum, they're criminals. Then you can justify these anti-American actions. And we need to hold these people accountable. State bars, after this election is over, should go after lawyers who've abused their law license by bringing frivolous actions, by encouraging people to engage in lawless conduct. And if you encourage someone to engage in lawless conduct and you're a lawyer, you should lose your ticket. You shouldn't get a slap on the wrist. You shouldn't get a 1-year suspension. You should be told you've lost your law license and you are permanently barred from having a law license. Now, maybe you can move to another state and they'll let you do it, but the penalty here should be severe. In the same way that we treat someone where a lawyer allows his client to use their privileged communications to foment crimes. That's why we have a crime fraud exception. You can talk to anything about your lawyer and it's confidential until the two of you start scheming to break the law, and now you're criminals. And you properly should be prosecuted, and the lawyer should lose their license and be barred. But I think the most important issue here is there are people who simply don't believe in democracy. As Mitt Romney, not me, Mitt Romney has been pointing out, there are a lot of Republicans who do not believe anymore in democracy. And of course, if you're among those people who believe that either Donald Trump is either God incarnate or he is God's agent, well, then you can justify anything. You can absolutely justify anything.
That whole thing with Donald Trump, it's now been around for a while, which is, how can you back this guy who's so clearly immoral and has none of the precepts in his life. He follows none of them, those associated with Christianity or religion. And you always hear that, well, the Lord picks an imperfect vessel for his perfect work. I mean, that's the.
Also, Mark, one other little point about this: these election board certifications, and I'm very concerned that Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, if the Republicans retain control of the House, won't certify the election, which would throw it to the states, which would guarantee Trump becomes president because of the way that process works under our Constitution. Certifying an election is what's known as in the law is a ministerial event. You're just doing the function. The people in charge of counting the votes have counted them. They've given you the vote count. You simply accept that, and that's all. That's all a ministerial act is. It doesn't have any force or power with it to change anything. And this is an abuse of a fundamental process that's important. And I don't think we should treat it lightly. After this election is over, I think we should have a serious campaign to prosecute criminally people who interfered with the proper certification of the election, no matter how it goes.
That makes total sense, of course. And yet I'm thinking back to Pence, and that was a ministerial role, wasn't it, David? And still,
absolutely. And Mike Pence, for whatever else I've been critical of him for, and I've written that he probably should have been prosecuted for some things he did as governor of Indiana that ripped off taxpayers and enriched his cronies. He did the right thing. Push came to shove. What we discovered is Donald Trump has no character. Mike Pence has character. He did the moral and the right thing. And somebody just asked about the movie The Apprentice. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. I thought maybe there was something else that somebody asked about. Oh, I know what it was. It was third party. I promise you this will be the last question. Jill Stein and the Jill Stein effect of a third party candidate, again, in an election this close. Can you speak to that?
Third-party candidates are spoilers. That's all they are. Now, in the case of the 1992 presidential election, the third-party candidate meant that Bill Clinton won. Jill Stein could very easily put Donald Trump in the White House, which I think she'd be perfectly happy with, even though he's the most anti-environmental president you can imagine. But remember, she had dinner with Putin very publicly alongside Mike Flynn, the former general who's become, for all practical purposes, an agent of the Kremlin. And Jill Stein she's a spoiler here. She cannot do anything but help Donald Trump. And she has a right to do so, but I don't think we have to respect her for her choice.
And the Democrats, just FYI to, I think it was Phineas who asked that question, they've launched a pretty aggressive campaign against Jill Stein. So they are battling whatever propaganda there is around Jill Stein pretty hard. They have a TikTok campaign. They talk about her as worse than a fire festival organizer, like a fraud. She's worse than Elizabeth Holmes. They talk about the fraud of Jill Stein is something that
if anybody really remembers who Elizabeth Holmes is now that she's in prison where she belongs.
That is true.
The most important thing that's going to happen in the next 3 weeks, Mark, is Kamala Harris has a lot of money. Donald Trump does not. And has the capacity to put on a tremendous ground game of getting people to the polls on election day. Donald does not. Now, whether she does that or not, whether her team is actually able to effectively organize people, get people to cast ballots, that we won't know until the votes are counted. But we know that Donald doesn't have nearly as much money. He doesn't have the enthusiasm factor. What he has is a core of die-hard, and maybe literally die-hard supporters, and a group of oligarchs, American oligarchs, who only care about the size of their fortunes, even when they have fortunes that are beyond any capacity to in any way raise their lifestyle or that of their entire extended family. They're just selfish people. And that's what he's got. And they're not donating that much money either to Donald. He's just not doing as well. So the thing to watch for is how successful the Democrats and Kamala Harris are in getting people to the polls. And remember, if she wins both the popular vote, which she will by, I predict, at least 15 million votes, and the Electoral College, if the Republicans control the Senate, they're not going to let her do anything for 2 years. The Republicans face a much better table on Senate campaigns in 2 years than they do now. But the first 2 years of her presidency, they'll just tie her up in knots. And so it really matters that voters in Arizona, Montana, Nevada, Texas, Florida, Virginia, Maryland pay attention to their competitive Senate races.
Yeah, this is why the loss of Joe Manchin, I mean, even corrupt Joe Manchin as a D Democrat mattered. And now with Tester, I think, is taking on water there, David. I don't think that he's going to win that Montana election.
I don't know how the polls are going to go. Montana, of course, if Tester loses, then Minnesota will have 3 senators. This guy doesn't even live in the state. Yeah. But, Adam Schiff is going to be the next senator from California. There's no chance that Steve Garvey will win the race, Mr. Supposed family values, horn dog Steve Garvey. In New York, we're going to have Democrats in every election for the Senate to the foreseeable future. But in these other states that I mentioned, these things can go other way. And here in Florida, we have Rick Scott, a man who oversaw a $1.5 billion fraud and then got lucky. He wasn't indicted.
Biggest fraud in the history
Texas,
of Medicare.
You have a man so hated by other senators that John McCain once said that if one of the senators were to murder him on the Senate floor, nobody would testify for the prosecution.
And he's only ahead by 1 percentage point in Texas.
People is a mystery.
Yeah, he's Ted Cruz is only ahead by 1 percentage point in Texas. Yeah. It's a remarkable thing. All right, I've got to let you go. Where has the con, I guess, that Donald Trump's family been? Haven't seen anyone on the trail with him. He's been out there alone, said Citizen Swain. What's the deal with that, please, David Cay Johnston?
Because Donald's family is an economic entity. His 3 oldest children denounced him when they were teenagers. One of them wrote a book. And then they discovered that nobody in the job market would pay them the way Daddy would. If Don Jr., Eric had to go get jobs, with a resume tomorrow, or if they had to do it before Daddy became president, they would, find themselves living in a much lower economic plane than they are now. Donald's marriages, the first and third marriages for sure were transactional relationships. They were commercial marriages. And I know for some people it's hard to imagine, but there are lots of marriages out there that are marriages of power, money, convenience. They have nothing to do with our notions of romantic marriage. And Melania is, she's out there saying, well, if you want me to appear on CNN, you have to give me, I think it was $250,000 she asked for. Maybe I've exaggerated that. It was $25,000.
No,
you don't get paid to go on the air. I mean, nobody ever paid me to go on the air to promote my books. You're like thankful you got the opportunity to talk about your book on the air. And so his family is not a family in the usual sense that we think about this. They are they're a crime family first and foremost. I mean, we're now in the 4th generation of the Trump crime family. Donald is the Don from the 3rd generation, and that's not going to change. That's who these people are. They're grifters. They're con artists. They live in a family in which, so long as you don't get arrested or indicted, any way you get the money doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whose life you destroy, who you cheated, who you didn't pay. And to them, there's nothing wrong with that to them. You know, plying 12-year-old girl because she has money to gamble with liquor and limousines and hotel suites and letting her gamble at the tables, there's nothing wrong with that to Donald Trump. It's just, it should be my money. And so if you don't understand that about the Trump family, you just don't understand who they are. They are not, you know, they'll tell you, oh, we're religious. Yeah, let's see the good works you've been doing. By the way, tell us about the Sunday school classes you've taught and what you know about the scriptures. It's, you know,
what's your favorite passage in the Bible is one of my favorites.
And don't ever forget 2 Corinthians.
Yeah. You know, again, as I say, to me, it's always been a clunky con. You've really watched it germinate from the very earliest days. There's some great stories David has in his book about like a young Donald Trump and, you know, how he was a bully and how, you know, he's a know-nothing bully, but how he tries to get his way and does get his way sometimes. But so you've watched this germinate, but I mean, wow, to see it, it just seems so...
To see how it's taken seed in America is very disturbing. And in the long term, there are 2 things we absolutely got to do. We've got to improve reading skills in this country. You know, half of Americans, more than half, read at the level of a 6th grader or below. That's just appalling. That's not true in any other modern developed country, and it's a drag on our economy. And secondly, we've got to teach the fundamentals of what the American Constitution is about. It's not a perfect document, but it's served us very well for almost 250 years. But it is, at the end of the day, only a piece of paper. So people have to believe in the principles of self-governance, in restraint, in good conduct, and accepting when you lose an election, you lost, instead of whining and crying and claiming, oh, I was cheated, it's not fair.
Well, and now that seems to be the go-to move. I'd also suggest that these oaths of office that people take who are in public service, we need to hold them to account to that oath. But it seems that that's an uphill climb as well. David, love our time together. I know we're way over time. Thank you for being so indulgent and speaking with us today. We look forward to next week.
Talk to you next week.
David Cay Johnston. Yeah. See you, David. Thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, right on. You are so lovely to be here. All of you who have arrived at our show. It's our 2-year anniversary week, and we're
with
really
your iron rod.
So happy to welcome in David Cay Johnston, who is just the best. Thanks for keeping us entertained. You guys are the highlight of my day, says Uncle Scrooge.
Nice.
Thank you, Uncle Scrooge. And thank you for the 5 spot. Appreciate that, Uncle Scrooge. Hey, you know, there's something special happening, and I'm looking forward to it. In fact, I'm coming to San Francisco to attend the fall show. Yeah, the fall show is a terrific opportunity to connect with design, with antiques, with, well, there it is, with art of all kinds. And as I say, it's, well, there's a lot going on there. 42 years of the fall show in San Francisco behind them. And this one is right there at the Festival Pavilion at Fort Masons. It's right on the bay. It'll be beautiful. There are lectures and book signings. And they've got a pop-up restaurant. Izzy's is going to have a pop-up restaurant on site. There is a bar there. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is it's kind of a fun environment in which to take in 40 exhibitors from around the world. Courtney is going with me. We're going to be hanging out. We'll be there Thursday and Friday. And if you're around, please say hello. I mean, again, you know, we'll just be knocking around like everybody else. And we'll be attending a few of these lectures, as I say. Again, the 17th through the 20th. 10:30 in the morning till 7, 17th through 19th. On the 20th, they're open 11 to 5. I think the 20th is Sunday. The website is sffallshow.org, sffallshow.org. And there you can kind of sign up and see what's going on. You know, it's free to sign up. You can just knock around and see what you like. In fact, speaking of money, the whole thing isn't expensive. It's less than $20 with our 25% discount. So go on their website or go to Eventbrite. You could see eventbrite.com. Our code, this is the discount code. It's important. It's all in capital letters, MARK. So Eventbrite, Bright is B-R-I-T-E, eventbrite.com, and enter the discount code MARK, all in capital letters, M-A-R-K, and you'll get 25% off. And it's, again, I think it ends up being $20 or less than $20. And buy your tickets, and you can even go to the event and just say the discount code, Mark. Say, you know, I'm here from the Mark Thompson Show, and I'm using Mark's discount, and they'll give you the discount at the door. So, again, it's Fort Mason. It's this weekend. I'm headed to San Francisco right after the show is done because we're looking forward to attending it. And it is, again, Thursday through Sunday. It should be terrific. I think you'll have a great, great time. And hopefully you will get a chance to say hello. Again, there's information and there's a newsletter and updates and all the rest at sffallshow.org. Rock on. We will see you there.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, with David, we talked a lot of politics. We gave you a lot of politics in the first hour as well. I have a mind to do some law and disorder. We haven't had a chance to do it because politics has sort of crowded us out, but I do have a political connection to law and disorder. I want you to know you're not completely going to be shielded from all things political. Law and Disorder has a political story as our first story. So hang on tight. Buckle up. This is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
The J6 crew, you know them. They are now, many of them, in jail. And the J6 rioters are running their jail block like a gang. They're leaving their jail block and leaving jail more radicalized than ever. They made up roughly half of the inmates held in this jail block. It's a special unit sequestered from the jail's other prisoners and known to its residents as, quote, the Patriot Wing, because it has so many of these residents.
That's really scary.
Yeah. A fitness evangelist who'd been transferred out to serve a 5-year prison sentence for attacking police officers with a floor lamp, a shoe, and a nightstick. And there are all kinds of nasty people in there, but it is the J6ers who are making news. And, for example, David Dempsey, a 37-year-old man from Van Nuys, California, in January pleaded guilty to assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers using a dangerous weapon. He said that he was in his cell reading when he heard shouts outside his door on a television posted high in the hallway. The news was replaying the moment that Trump went to the ground with that assassination attempt. Dempsey said, I thought he was dead. I was effing devastated. I started having a panic attack. I was crying, screaming, yelling. I flipped out on the guards. I demanded that they turn on phones. This is effing BS, I said. I think they just killed the effing president. And you want to tell me to calm down? Of course, by this time, the Secret Service had taken Trump to his car, etc. But these prisoners are so wrapped up in the welfare and future of Donald Trump that they very much feel connected to the former president. And they also are looking for full pardons with an apology to many of them as well. when asked how they thought inmates in general would have reacted if Trump indeed had been killed instead of just grazed in the ear. The one prisoner said, "I'm really not comfortable answering that over the phone," these telephone interviews. 1,400 people plus have been charged with federal crimes for their actions in the Capitol on January 6th. The majority of that day's violent offenders have, again, been spending some portion of time either in jail or in home detention. And in the wing of this prison are high-profile MAGAites who are looking to get out, and they're looking for a pardon, and they run the place. Apparently, seniority is a big thing, and seniority seems to be bestowed upon those who've been incarcerated before or have been there for an extended period of time. If you have a deep criminal record, you command respect in this jail and within the J6 movement that continues in this prison. There are all sorts of efforts to build different arms of these patriots, as they call, so that they are preparing for getting out. Many of them are connected to QAnon. And the scale of support the rioters have had on the outside, according to many who have reported on this, is unique among incarcerated groups, including gangs. The only historical parallel for these J6ers who are, again, taking control of this wing of the prison is the Irish Republican Army prisoners. A network of believers is maintained through key rituals that they do every night for the past 3 years. At 9, the inmates have joined a type of conference call, usually through their state-supplied tablets, and spoken to a vigil of supporter activists who are outside the jail, and an audience of thousands listening live across the country. They talk about their cases, their persecution, their stolen election. Every night they sing the Star-Spangled Banner. Around 20 of these residents collaborated with Trump on a song, Justice for All. You've probably seen Trump play that at some of his rallies. Trump recites the Pledge of Allegiance, and the inmates in the form of the J6 prison choir sing the national anthem.
This is crazy.
Especially
since these are people who want to do away with the Constitution. The gall to sing the national anthem and Yankee Doodle Dandy as if they're patriots? Please.
Yeah. There's no question that this is prison, but reporters are saying that the place really has the feel of a sleepaway camp. And it's really in control, much of it, by the J6 crew. Meanwhile, in California, in Fresno County, the CHP seizes fentanyl. That in itself, while maybe important, wouldn't necessarily make law and disorder, but it's where they hid the fentanyl that makes this segment. They hid it in carne asada, everyone. That is the answer that I guess is they seized nearly $1.7 million worth of fentanyl in the Central Valley, a lot of it packed in carne asada. It was all during a traffic stop. Drug-sniffing dog alerted the handler to narcotics inside of a cooler. It was an SUV with a Washington license plate that read, "Got beef." Inside the cooler, authorities found soft drinks, seltzers, bottles of water, and multiple packages of raw beef stuffed with 11 pounds of fentanyl, valued at $500,000. The 30-year-old suspect, who is from Washington, was arrested, faces felony charges of possession of fentanyl for sale and transportation of fentanyl across state lines. Yeah, they're not big on you transferring and moving that fentanyl. A security guard for Chase Bank helped plan a $200,000 armed heist.
What?
I know. The very guards that you figure are watching over the money. As I always say about this and many other stories, who's watching the watchers?
It was an inside job.
The Chase Bank. It was a couple. They arrived early in the bank's day. They were there to withdraw $200,000. Nearby, the private security guard stood watch, occasionally sending text messages on her cell phone. As the couple made their way across the parking lot that day, they were approached by two armed men who robbed them before fleeing. It seemed like a random act of violence, but federal authorities say that it was actually an inside job, as Kim says. Chase says the guard was an employee of a private security contractor. It wasn't one of ours. He's a private security contractor, okay? Well, Chase Bank knew nothing about him. The company is cooperating, apparently, and according to a federal grand jury indictment, the planning for the heist may have begun a month prior, after this couple showed up at a Chase branch in Palmdale, California, it's in the high desert, to deposit a check for $315,000. They wanted to withdraw about $200,000, but were told to return at a later date. And that's when the private security guard thought, oh, I get it. These two are going to be back to get that money. And he passed the information along to the two people who are named in the indictment. The two suspects allegedly drove to the bank and waited in the parking lot for the victims to come to cash that $200,000 check. That's when the security guard sent a series of text messages and phone calls about the two to the co-conspirators, who then were in position to make the bust. Federal officials said that the money was then laundered by visiting Commerce Casino and Hotel in Commerce, California, a place where Mark Thompson has been all too many times. They laundered the money through gambling chips and cashing out about $168,700 on some of those visits. It was a heist. It was an inside job. It had everything, Kim. But in the end, they didn't get away with it. In Orange County, a man is charged with workers' comp fraud, $100 million worth of workers' comp fraud.
What? I mean, if you're going to do it big.
He did it super big. It was a 3-year investigation. David Fish, 55, of Laguna Niguel, masterminded an extensive scheme to control clinics and also providers who would see patients, refer them to specific providers in order to get illegal referral payments, and then unlawfully bill workers' comp for their services. This is a $30 billion annual problem in the United States, is workers' comp fraud.
Yep.
It's huge. The district attorney said this, Todd Spitzer in Orange County. At a time when families across America are struggling to keep up with increasing prices for everything from gas and rent to just being able to put food on the table for their families, criminals like these only increase the cost of insurance premiums and put the American dream just that much further out of reach for so many hardworking people. Well, who is the guy with the guitar, Albert?
I don't know.
And
Looks
also,
like a doctor ready to play me a tune.
yes, please enjoy this photo of a man with a guitar. We believe he has some relevance to the story. But that is a huge...
He is the OC man who was doing all that stuff.
Thank you,
the guy.
Albert. All right, thank you, Albert. I think Kim
Albert, thank you.
presumed that, but I wasn't sure.
The man of many
Mr.
talents.
David Fish. Mr. Fish.
Oh, that is David Fish. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Well, David Fish, just part of this scheme. There were neurosurgeons involved. There was a huge network. You can imagine, $100 million, a network of who you'd think skilled professionals in the medical field associated with this. And finally, I leave you with this, Instagrammers. Federal prosecutors announcing charges against 3 young people who they say robbed a string of banks across Northern California last year by using Instagram to recruit women to walk into financial institutions and pass the tellers notes demanding money.
What?
That's right. They recruited people to do their bank heisting, and they found them on Instagram. Both of Northern California, Jones and Millette. Jones and Millette are the 2, I think there were videos of them holding large amounts of cash. And they were able to create the impression that they had a key to making money. Happy money-making Mondays, one said in one of her posts. I got 1 spot left in a car. Tap in. I don't need MFs that's scared to get money around me. So if it's not even for you, please don't vote.
Wow.
Yeah. So the indictment states that these kids, 3 of them there, you can see them join the scheme after meeting her on Instagram. They traced the roots of the enterprise to when she allegedly saved a screenshot and internet searches describing bank tellers and what they should do when there is a robbery going on. On July 15th, the indictment says there's an Instagram message sent saying, quote, "Banks hittin', let's work. Come on, boo." 2 days later, according to the federal allegations, the trio hit a bank in Suisun City, a town on the Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta.
Yeah.
They arrived there, the indictment states, in a stolen white Audi A7 with tinted windows. One went inside the bank and passed a note to a teller that read in part, quote, "Put a smile on your face and pull the money out, or I will shoot."
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's pretty serious stuff. She walked out with
thinking about the thought process that goes into clicking yes on that. Hit me, boo. There's a spot left in my, oh, that sounds like a great thing. Click.
That's the point. It sounded fun. It's Instagram. Hey, this is great. Let's go get some money. They only got $1,000 in that one hit in the bank. They hit a bank in Vallejo, which is outside of the Bay Area. They're in the suburbs of the Bay Area, and so on. And so they were kind of feeling it. But I will say this. They are going to do serious time. When you hold up a bank or you're involved in any kind of robbery like this and you use a gun, you're done. And so these people who are young people who got connected with, they got away with tens of thousands of dollars. I think I saw also almost $15,000 in another heist. I mean, it's all fun, and it's like the movie Set It Off until you get nailed. And even in that movie Set It Off, they really got nailed. But in this case, they're all alive, but they are going to do serious time. I mean, they could do 9 years or more. Yikes. So this is no way to make money. But it's the grim reality. Instagram picked up these 3, and now the cops picked up those 3, and they will be doing time. That's Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
What a day it has been. My gosh.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We've got some stuff for tomorrow, too. Rothman joins us tomorrow, as I recall. Also, Belinda with It's the Planet Stupid tomorrow. I'll be doing the show from San Francisco. So that's going to be kind of cool, too. We'll be kind of on remote for a few days.
Are you you're going to be at the hotel doing it or at
Yeah,
okay.
I'll be at the hotel. We've kind of got this portable rig, and it'll be Albert. You'll have to. But it won't be Albert. It'll be Tony. I think tomorrow. Yeah. Tony will have to step up. Try to get that tight board going that Albert's got. With the various things that we need, production elements. But he'll step up. Are the J6 boys tied to two Aryan God, or I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're tied to other existing groups. That's a great question. I just don't know. No contendo. It does appear that there are some linkages to gangs, existing gangs, but they've sort of suggested that they've buffed up on their own, and they are connecting maybe to existing gangs, but they're running the show, is what is suggested. What was the second one? I missed it. MAGA bus issues equal fake news. They're always on the short bus. I see, Louise. Thanks, Louise, for the $5 super chat. Here's a Trevor Starr super chat with $10 thrown at us. Mark, as David suggested, will you dye your hair blue for the election? Yeah, I'm having enough trouble darkening my hair just to get this quasi-natural color. So it actually, how dare you, first of all, Trevor? I think the hair is on point. So how dare you? Trump is an oversized toddler, says that lady Beatrice, for a $10 super chat. He's always firing people who won't agree with him. You can't play with me no more. Why P. Diddy is getting busted and not this oversized preschooler is ridiculous. It's redonkulous. It's ridiculous. It's ridic. I agree, Lady Beatrice. Well said. And thank you for the super chat. Wow. No Contendo, please ask your guest about, what is this? I'm sorry.
I don't know what it meant. That's why I didn't flash it up on the screen, because I didn't know what it meant.
Well, it sadly, now it's way out of context, and I don't know what we're talking about. So I'm so sorry.
BYD.
No
we don't know what that means. Yeah.
I feel like I should. Maybe Albert will figure it out. He's good at figuring stuff out. BLM and Antifa attack police. Back the blue, says Fox News, says No Contendo. Hillbilly runs up on feds with a blicky, and Fox is silent. The double standards are mind-blowing. This is true, by the way, if you're talking about what's his name in Nevada, who David referenced to. There's definitely a double standard. But and it's wrapped up in a lot of other double standards. But if you're talking about who was the guy who referenced the guy who helped me he didn't want to pay the taxes or the fees for using public lands for his livestock. Bundy, I think is his last name. Yeah, that was an insane situation in which Ammon Bundy, I think is his first name, Ammon, and the idea was that he was using public lands. Everybody pays a fee to graze their cattle on public lands, and he didn't want to pay it. And somehow he became the hero in that story, which is bizarre because the reality is that the government was played as evil when actually he was very much in violation of the law. I don't think that's necessarily what you were talking about, No Contendo, but it reminded me of that of what was going on with David Cay Johnston. Funny how AIPAC has no energy for any GOP members. We don't hear a lot about AIPAC in the GOP, and we don't hear a lot about AIPAC with Democratic talking points because they don't talk about lobby groups at all. I mean, you don't talk about the AIPAC lobby. You don't talk about the fuel lobby. You don't talk about the pharmaceutical lobby. These are just I would suggest third rails. We know they're there, but I'd say from a political standpoint, most politicians know don't talk a lot about lobby money, even though it does control so much of America. So, no, what was the, was that it? Was there anything else or not? I'm sorry to, that's it. Albert, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to share with the...
No, great show.
You're going to Vancouver?
I'm not used to working Tuesdays, so it's nice to just sit and listen to David Cay Johnston talk.
David Cay Johnston is a guilty pleasure for all of us. We just want to kick it up and get a bowl of cereal and listen to Daddy tell us about so much good stuff. He's got a lot of good info.
Probably the worst kind of cereal. The Kelseys have a cereal that has Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Lucky Charms, and Reese's Puffs in it. So.
Did you see that one of the Kelseys is going to be hosting a game show? You saw that, right? Is it?
I saw that. I'm sure it's not the one who's still playing football. But,
yeah, no, I don't think so.
One of the Kelseys is in a new movie too. Grotesquerie.
It's good to be a Kelsey these days. Mm-hmm. That's the point.
And then Kelsey and Swift were at the Yankees game, I think, the the other night.
Oh, Swift and Kelsey together. Wow. Well,
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Rothman tomorrow. It's the Planet Stupid. Kim does.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
The After Party Log next. Thank you all. Thank you for your support and love. Bye-bye.